The single biggest task Lane Kiffin has right now is to finish his first staff at LSU. The next biggest, of course, is going to be the early signing period on Wednesday. Well, there are some things that we already know about Lane Kiffin's staff that are coming together, like a lot of the offensive staff he's bringing. Charlie Weiss Jr., George McDonald, the receivers coach. There's others. And as I have learned, Lane Kiffin has extended the opportunity to Blake Baker to stay on staff as LSU's defensive coordinator. I don't think that's any surprise to anyone. They met. Lane Kiffin wants to proceed with Baker and this defensive staff. This is complicated because Blake Baker on Monday interviewed for Tulane's vacant head coaching job. Now, a little bit of the backstory, if you're not aware, Blake Baker, who's from Houston, played at Tulane from 2000 to 2004. He was a linebacker there. So this is his alma mater. It's a vacant job, and he interviewed for it on Monday. It's also worth noting that a year ago, John Sumrall was very close to getting the North Carolina job. The Tar Heels ended up hiring, Bill Belichick. Had Sumrall gotten that job, Baker had kind of made it known, and it was known in a lot of circles that Baker was going to be one of the top candidates for that Tulane job last year. So it's not surprising at all that he interviewed and is a person of interest to Tulane in that job. For whatever it's worth, I've heard Shannon Dawson connected, heard Billy Napier as a person of interest. It is important to note that the last two coaches, Sumrall and Fritz, both were head coaches before they got the Tulane job. So Tulane hired sitting head coaches. So that's something that matters to Tulane. Just something worth keeping in mind there. This is going to be an interesting decision for Blake Baker if Tulane offers the job. Now, when Lane Kiffin on Monday met at his introductory press conference, he was asked about the staff. He was really non-committal. He didn't say very much, but this was his very short answer on the staff.
I don't know that I can get into it. There's so many things. What have we been here for 24 hours? So I don't know that all that is figured out, and we're still in the process. And it's a challenging spot, too, because LSU is still playing in a bowl game, too. And so Frank will continue to serve in that role. We've spent a lot of time together, the last 24 hours as I've been here. And so have made the decision that he's going to still stay in that role as the head coach of that team for the bowl game. So there's a lot of complicated moving parts in that.
So the one thing we know is Frank will coach the bowl game. Everything else, he was sort of evasive, not committing to anything. And some of the things we've talked about a bit here that have come to light. But for Blake Baker, I can tell you this. LSU is working to keep Blake Baker. And as of me coming on the air here today, the latest I heard from contacts at LSU is they were confident Blake Baker was going to stay and that LSU was willing to be competitive financially. So John Sumrall was making $3 million a year as the Tulane head coach. He left for Florida, is getting 7.5. God bless you. You doubled your salary. Baker is making 2.5 at LSU. So could they push him closer to or over $3 million? Maybe. One conversation I had last night with a high-level donor at LSU was that, and it was not Gordon. I think everyone always just assumes that, but that a lot of the donors at LSU are stepping up big time. And you can understand that. There's a ton of excitement, not just for NIL opportunities, but for staff and basically everything Lane Kiffin needs right now. You pulled off this major coup. So if you need to get Blake Baker to $3 million, I think they're going to be able to do that. And I believe from the LSU perspective, they are confident Blake Baker is going to remain their defensive coordinator. It is not, but it is important to note, it is, as I understand as of right now, but before I was outside coming on air, as I understand it, there has not yet been a signed contract with Blake Baker to extend him and keep him in Baton Rouge. But I believe he's leaning toward that. As a matter of fact, we reported earlier today at LouisianaSports.net that Blake Baker was on the phone this morning with Lane Kiffin and Richard Anderson, five-star defensive tackle out of New Orleans, trying to make sure that they secure his signature on Wednesday in the early signing period. So something that's up in the air right now without a defensive line coach in play and Frank Wilson's future still very much in doubt. More on that, though. So Blake Baker is continuing working for LSU. There's a lot of confidence around LSU that Blake Baker is going to stay. There's motivation to keep him there. There's confidence they'll be able to do that. They're willing to be financially competitive with whatever Tulane is willing to pay. Summerall was making 3. Maybe they go north of that. I don't know what those numbers will look like. I just know that LSU wants to keep Blake Baker, and they're finding ways to be competitive. For Blake Baker, he's really got a couple of decisions here. Do you want to try it? And he has said on the record so many times that he wants to be a head coach, and that's no surprise to anybody. But does he want to go the Power 4 defensive coordinator to Power 4 head coach route? Or do you want to go get your first head coaching job in a G6 and then hopefully springboard that into a Power 4 job like we just saw John Summerall do? Now, that was Summerall's second job. He was at Troy, then Tulane. But if Baker goes to Tulane, which the last 2 coaches have been wildly successful there, with Fritz, who parlayed that into the Houston job, which remember now is in the Big 12, and Summerall now at Florida making $7.5 million a year after 2 years at Tulane, Blake Baker's walking into a situation where you have a really established, stable program, seemingly ready-made for success. His alma mater, he knows Louisiana. It's a lot of reasons he could have success there and springboard that into a major offer in a couple of years. Or does he stay put at LSU and try to go the route of Dan Lanning from Georgia to Oregon? Or Kirby Smart from Alabama to Georgia. There's so many examples of the Power 4 coordinators that have gotten major head coaching jobs. Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame, Ryan Day at Ohio State, Sharon Moore at Michigan. Look, Dave Aranda did it. He went from LSU to Baylor. Now, Baylor's not a top 20 job in the country, maybe not even a top 30 job in the country, but is it somewhere in that top 40? You talk about the Power 4? Yeah, certainly it is. So Baker's just going to have to make that decision. And we all know the family dynamics there as well. Blake's wife played soccer at LSU. She's from the North Shore. So you're tap dancing all around it. But as I understand it, the Baker children, they're in school in Baton Rouge and love Baton Rouge, and they love LSU. And it would be amazing if Baker could stay. And certainly the thing that they could sell him is, look, the thing that frustrated you this year with having no offensive help, that will not be the case next year, where the defense would have to do everything because you're going to have Lane Kiffin's offense, and everywhere he goes, offense follows. So this is going to come down to, number one, does Tulane formally offer Blake Baker the job? And then if they do, does he want to be a head coach, or can LSU entice him to stay? It is worth noting, just something to keep an eye on with the Baker story. If he does go, I'm told he would likely bring with him Jake Olson and Kevin Peoples. Remember, those were assistants on his defensive staff at Missouri who came to Baton Rouge. So you would then, again, bold underscore if Baker were to take the Tulane job, you'd be losing your defensive coordinator, your safeties coach, your edges coach, and we still don't know Kyle Williams' future, which is up in the air. I don't know if Kyle Williams is going to continue coaching collegiately. So you'd be losing at least 3, possibly 4 members of your defensive staff, in addition to the turnover offensively with Lane's staff coming in. So still a lot up in the air and unknown at that point. There's always the question of who's next, right? If Baker were to leave, and again, big, giant if, but sometimes the most obvious name is obvious for a reason. The name I would tell you is DJ Durkin. It was just the interim head coach at Auburn. Yeah, Durkin was, as I understand, very upset that he did not get the full-time job at Auburn, and was also on Lane Kiffin's staff for a couple of seasons during Kiffin's early years at Ole Miss as his defensive coordinator. So the relationship there, the experience in the SEC, good defensive mind, all of that stuff, that's one name worth keeping an eye on if you get to the point where Baker leaves LSU for Tulane. But as of right now, I think LSU is pretty confident that they're going to be able to keep Blake Baker here. But if Tulane offers him that job, I think we could all understand if he were to take it. So we'll continue to follow that as it plays out. Blake Baker's future, a little cloudy right now, whether he returns to LSU or gets his first head coaching job at his alma mater down in New Orleans. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.